Let's welcome in Josh Robbins from the Orlando Sentinel, who interviewed Dwight Howard on Memorial Day and got some encouraging quotes from him, which we'll discuss momentarily, and also ESPN NBA insider Chris Broussard. Josh, let's start for those quotes from the Orlando Sentinel that we mentioned that you got from Dwight on Monday. Here's what Dwight had to say. He says, "I'm not trying to run behind nobody like Shaq or be behind somebody else." He goes on to say, "I want to start my own path, and I want people to follow my path and not just follow somebody else's path. I want to have my own path, and I want to start that here in Orlando," end quote. All right, Josh, so he's certainly saying all the right things. How are those comments playing out in Orlando?
Well, I think it's made some fans feel more relieved, but ultimately, words don't matter much. It's actions that matter. And at the present time, Dwight is not going to sign his 2-year extension offer that's on the table. He said that today during a charity event in Birmingham, Alabama. No one really expected him to sign that extension offer in the first place. It's simply not in his best interest right now. His main goal, he said today, is to see how the Magic develop, how they develop on the court, to see whether they can be competitive in the long term. And as you see, quite obviously, the Miami Heat are vastly improved, the Chicago Bulls are vastly improved, and the Magic have to upgrade their roster to please Dwight.
Now, Josh, Howard said that he didn't want to follow Shaquille O'Neal. How much is the way that Shaq left Orlando impacting this entire story, the narrative of the story?
Well, try to remember this. Dwight Howard is the most recognizable person in Orlando. That's obvious. He's the most charismatic player to come down the pike here since Shaq. There are obvious comparisons. They're both dominant centers. They both have effervescent personalities. And so whenever he leaves his house, people ask him, "Are you going to leave?" People have actually asked him, "Are you going to pull a Shaq?" And for Dwight, who likes to be liked, like all of us, it's a sore subject. And so you can understand why he would like to get out in front of the story, state his preference, and he says right now his preference is to remain with the Magic, and his hope is that people will take him at his word and try to lay off him a little bit so he can have a productive year ahead and then make his decision.
Chris, at one point there seemed to be a rivalry between Shaq and D12. How much of a shadow does Shaq's career and his larger-than-life personality perhaps cast over Dwight Howard, even though he's a great player in his own right?
Well, Dwight, you know, when he began the Superman persona and kind of following Shaq, it was out of flattery. He's not trying to upstage Shaq. He's not trying to be better than Shaq or make people forget about Shaq. But Shaq, for some reason, has been insecure about it, and he's criticized Dwight for trying to be him, saying he's trying to be the new Superman, and there's only one Superman and things like that. So I think maybe it was inevitable because both of them played in Orlando. Both of them were the most dominant center in the game. But really, Dwight and Shaq are on different levels. I mean, Shaq was so huge and such a great big man in an era of great big men. And Dwight is really, you know, not nearly as big as Shaq on the court. And he's playing in an era where there really aren't any big men who can compete with him. So I think that there shouldn't be too much comparison between the two because they're playing in different eras.